Joining us now is Patrick Delices, a Republican candidate for the 17th City Council District. Nice to see you again, Mr. Delices.
Nice to see you, Gary.
Let's just talk about Republicans in the Bronx. I mean, it's clear, and we haven't had a Republican in elected office for many, many years. Talk to me about why you think your candidacy makes sense for the people of the 17th.
Well, my candidacy makes sense for the people in District 17 in the South Bronx for a variety of reasons. But the main reason is the fact that we've been electing Democrats in city council, state senator, borough president, and even at our congressional district. And yet the Bronx is one of the most violent areas in our nation. And also the South Bronx is one of the most porous areas in our nation as well. So I think it's time for change. And I think people need to wake up and say to themselves, you know what? We've been voting Democrats for decades, and yet the Democrats have not done anything to change the economic structure in the Bronx, to change the political climate in the Bronx. So we need a change, and to do that, I think they need to look at a candidate like myself who's a Republican.
When you talk about changing the economic structure, I guess the first thing that people would look at is jobs. We know that unemployment has fallen in the borough of the Bronx. Talk to me about what you would do to talk to the people in the 17th and say, this is how we're going to get more of you to work.
Well, prior to being a politician, Gary, I was Director of Career Services. I've ran employment services, vocational services for over 20 years at various colleges, universities, and social service agencies. And I have an impeccable record of success. I have over 95% rate of success of placing people, students, and others in internship opportunities, job training, and employment opportunities. So I know how to bring jobs to the Bronx. I know how to bring employment opportunity to the people in the South Bronx. I have a track record of success over 20 years in terms of doing that.
Let's talk about another item that has been a political football in the city of New York, and that is our transit system. Certainly the mayor and governor don't get along. Many people are saying, well, this infrastructure is one thing. Are there alternative infrastructures that make sense? What do you do to alleviate the crush on our transit system and really make it possible so people can go from one side of the Bronx to the other?
As you already know, Gary, I'm a problem solver. So there's always alternatives to problems, and there's always solution to those alternatives. The transit system in New York City is disastrous. It's deplorable, and it needs to be fixed. We cannot be the pride of the world, and our transit system is like a transit system which is falling apart. We need to fix the transit system, whether it means taking the transit system, the MTA, out of the control of the governor and placing in the control of the mayor with oversight from the city council. That's another type of debate. But there's alternatives. There's waterways, and there's also alternatives in terms of reducing congestions. For example, I live in Longwood Avenue. One of the stops is Prospect Avenue, the 2 and the 5 train. Why not have the 2 trains go express from 149th Street Grand Concourse to 96th Street to the west side in Manhattan?
When they run essentially the same line.
They run essentially the same line. The 5 goes express. The 3 trains only runs up to Manhattan, and the 3 trains run incredibly well. But the 2 and the 5 and the 6 in the South Bronx, they don't run that well. And we need to look at alternative solutions. And one solution that I will propose is that have the 2 train run express from the Bronx to Manhattan, to 96th Street, and from 96th Street to 149th Street Grand Concourse.
And the logic behind that, as you said, is they both run the same stops anyway.
Absolutely.
Why duplicate the service?
And it will reduce congestion.
Let's also talk about
the same congestion,
sure,
Gary, that created a situation in which no one really talks about. A pregnant woman recently at the 2 train, Prospect Avenue, where I live, accidentally bumped someone because the train was crowded, and that person, that maniac, took out a knife and stabbed this pregnant woman in her stomach. This is unacceptable. This is what congestion creates. This is what a deplorable subway system creates. conditions creates. And these conditions were created not by Republicans, but by Democrats. And this is why I'm running as a Republican among many reasons. And this needs to be changed. Violence against women, violence against children is utterly repugnant and atrocious. And it needs to stop.
So I'll take your lead on that. So what do you do to stop it?
You do a lot of different things. You get, number one, you get the community involved. Number two, you get the police involved with the community and the community involved with the police as well. So you create a situation where there's trust with law enforcement and the community, and there's trust with the community and law enforcement. So you create a situation where law enforcement is totally engaged in terms of preventing crime, in particular towards women and children. And you create community watch, where the community is active in terms of preventing crimes. Also, there's funding for body cameras for police. I propose cameras in the most violent corners and section areas of the South Bronx in order to reduce and prevent crime. So there's a lot of different ways and a lot of different approaches, but funding must go into crime prevention.
Let's give you an opportunity to summarize, the entire platform. You've given us a pretty good picture of the kinds of problem solving you want to do, but we'll give you a chance now to, go through the whole thing and tell us why do you think people should vote for Patrick Delices in the 17th district.
People should vote for Patrick Delices because Patrick Delices is the best and the brightest. I have 2 graduate degrees from Columbia University. Some people could say the first time might have been a fluke, but there's no affirmative action here. It's based on merit. Not only I have 2 degrees from Columbia University, I have an MBA from a top business school, NYU Stern. So, and I've been involved and engaged in civic activity. I've been involved in terms of providing job opportunities for people in the South Bronx and outside of the South Bronx. I've been involved in terms of reducing crime prevention. I know the people of the South Bronx. I've traveled the world. Gary, I could live anywhere I want to, but I choose to live in the South Bronx because the conditions in the South Bronx, in District 17, are unacceptable, and someone must take the lead and change these conditions and make the South Bronx better and safer and stronger for the people, and I'm that person.
Patrick Delices, Republican candidate for the 17th Council District. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And guess what? We'll be right back with more.